So now we'll talk about the MCA syndrome. So here I am showing this is the main stem of the middle cerebral artery. This is also known as M1 segment. This is the main stem of middle cerebral artery. It gives rise to penetrating lenticulostriate branches, which in turn supplies the basal ganglia and the posterior limb of internal capsule. This is the superior division of middle cerebral artery. Middle cerebral artery, it gives two divisions in the sylvian fissure, the superior division and the inferior division. Superior division primarily supplies the frontal and the superior parietal cortex. Superior division, it supplies the frontal and superior parietal cortex. While the inferior segment, this is the inferior division, this inferior division supplies the inferior parietal and temporal cortex. Now we'll discuss the implications of this divisions of MCA artery. Now, what if the main stem of the middle cerebral artery is occluded? That means there is occlusion of middle cerebral artery at its origin. So, first possibility is stem occlusion or M1 segment occlusion. So, it will result in contralateral hemiplegia, contralateral hemisensory loss, contralateral homonymous hemianopia, conjugate gaze deviation to ipsilateral side, so I'll discuss each one of them. Now, why does this contralateral hemiplegia occurs? Because the middle cerebral artery, it supplies the primary motor area, the Brodmann area number 4. So due to involvement of primary motor area, the contralateral hemiplegia ensues. Now primarily it supplies the primary motor area for face and arm. But how does there occurs the involvement of leg? Because it also supplies this descending fibers from the leg area which join the corona radiata. So due to involvement of primary motor area for face and arm and due to involvement of descending fibers from the leg area, there occurs the complete contralateral hemiplegia of face, arm and leg. Similarly, due to involvement of postcentral gyrus, primary somatosensory area, Brodmann area number 312, there is contralateral hemisensory loss over the face, arm and leg. Now, why does occur the homonymous hemianopia? It occurs due to involvement of the optic radiation. Optic radiation is again supplied by the middle cerebral artery. So there occurs contralateral homonymous hemianopia. Similarly, conjugate eye deviation to ipsilateral side that occurs due to involvement of frontal eye field, Brodmann area number 8. It occurs due to involvement of frontal eye field. This frontal eye field also known as contraversive eye center. It is primarily responsible for conjugate deviation of eyes to contralateral side, and when it is affected due to infarction, there is palsy of contralateral conjugate eye deviation, and the ipsilateral eye deviation occurs. So the eye deviates towards the side of infarct. Now, depending upon the involvement of dominant hemisphere or non-dominant hemisphere, the additional clinical features are dominant and non-dominant hemisphere. Due to involvement of dominant hemisphere, there is global aphasia. Now, why does this global aphasia occur? It occurs due to involvement of motor speech area, it occurs due to involvement of sensory speech area, and also the conduction fibers, the arcuate fasciculus. The motor speech area, which is also called as Broca's area, it is primarily supplied by the superior division. The sensory speech area, which is called as the Wernicke's area, is primarily supplied by the inferior division, and the conduction fibers, the arcuate fasciculus, is again supplied by the branches of middle cerebral artery. So due to the involvement of stem, there occurs the involvement of motor speech area, sensory speech area, as well as the conduction fibers, resulting in global aphasia. Now, apart from that, due to involvement of dominant hemisphere, there is also something known as alexia, agraphia, and Gerstmann syndrome. Now, what is this alexia? Alexia is difficulty in reading. Alexia is difficulty in reading. Agraphia is difficulty in writing. And Gerstmann syndrome, it consists of alexia, agraphia, acalculia, finger anomia, and right-left confusion. So it consists of four things. Finger anomia, the patient is not able to tell which one is thumb, which one is index finger, which one is ring finger. And there is right-left confusion, there is acalculia, and there is agraphia. So this is what we call as Gerstmann syndrome. It again occurs due to involvement of angular gyrus in the dominant hemisphere, which is being supplied by the middle cerebral artery. Now, due to involvement of non-dominant hemisphere, there occurs the phenomenon of hemi-neglect. Now, what is this hemi-neglect phenomenon? In this hemi-neglect phenomenon, patient neglects one half of his body. Supposingly, there is an involvement of right non-dominant hemisphere, so the patient neglects left half of his body. Patient will only shave right side of his beard. Patient will only groom right side of his body. So much so that in severe cases, patient may consider the other half as an alien limb. Okay. So, and similarly, if you show him two fingers simultaneously and ask him to point, so he will only point at the finger on one side. He will neglect the other side. But if you individually show him the finger, so he will correctly point out. So this is what we call as hemi-neglect phenomenon. Similarly, if you ask him to draw a supposedly clock, so he will only draw the one side of the clock. Okay, so this is known as hemi-neglect phenomenon. Apart from that, there occurs anosognosia. What is anosognosia? Anosognosia is lack of self-awareness. Patient is not aware of his illness. He may even deny of his paralysis. This is anosognosia. Another thing is dressing and constructional apraxia. Now, apraxia, as I have already told you, it is inability to perform skilled learned movements despite normal power and coordination. So, what does dressing apraxia means? That means patient is not able to dress himself. If you ask him to put on his shirt, maybe he catch up his shirt from the bottom, he align his limb to the to some crease. Okay, so this is dressing apraxia. And constructional apraxia means patient is not able to draw single line drawing. Supposedly you ask him to draw a triangle, so he will not be able to do so. To sing a simple line drawings, he is not able to do that. That is constructional apraxia. So this is the whole spectrum of middle cerebral artery syndrome if it is occluded at its origin. Now we will discuss what happens if there is involvement of superior division or inferior division. Here only I want to mention about the internal carotid artery syndrome. Internal carotid artery occlusion in the presence of competent circle of Willis may even go unnoticed. Otherwise, it will present similarly to middle cerebral artery stem occlusion, except there is amaurosis fugax. Amaurosis fugax is the sole features that distinguishes the middle cerebral artery syndrome from the internal carotid artery syndrome. Now, what is this amaurosis fugax? That means there is transient monoocular blindness lasting from 5 to 30 minutes. That is the sole feature which will distinguish middle cerebral artery syndrome from internal carotid artery syndrome. So now we'll discuss about the what will happen if there is involvement of superior or inferior division. So if there is an occlusion of superior division, so as I have told you, the superior division, it primarily supplies the frontal and superior parietal cortex. So there will be contralateral hemiplegia due to involvement of primary motor area. There will be plus contralateral hemisensory loss due to involvement of primary somatosensory area. And apart from this, the patient is having Broca's aphasia, which is also known as non-fluent aphasia due to involvement of motor speech area. I hope it is clear. The superior division, it supplies the primary motor area, primary sensory area, Broca's area and frontal eye field. So due to involvement of primary motor area, there is contralateral hemiplegia. Due to involvement of primary somatosensory area, there is contralateral hemisensory loss. Due to involvement of Broca's area, there is Broca's or non-fluent aphasia. And due to involvement of frontal eye field, there will be ipsilateral conjugate eye deviation. So this is what occurs in occlusion of superior division. Now what if there is an occlusion of inferior division? Again, in occlusion of inferior division, because the primary motor area and primary somatosensory area is spared, as I have told you, it supplies primarily the inferior parietal and temporal cortex. So there will be no hemiplegia, no hemisensory loss. So there is only Wernicke's aphasia. There is Wernicke's aphasia in absence of weakness. There is no weakness, mind you. This is the Wernicke's area, sensory area for speech, which is primarily supplied by the inferior division. So the patient will having Wernicke's aphasia. In Wernicke's aphasia, the patient is not able to understand. Comprehension is impaired. The patient is not able to understand written or spoken language. Patient will have jargon speech. Jargon speech means patient will speak anything which has no meaning to it. Patient will evolve new words, which is called as neologisms. So the person who is listening will not understand anything out of it, because the patient is evolving new words and he is having jargon speech. This happens if there is an involvement of dominant hemisphere. If there is an involvement of non-dominant hemisphere, the patient will have hemi-neglect or spatial agnosia. And apart from that, in either of this, whether there is an involvement of dominant or non-dominant hemisphere, patient can have contralateral homonymous superior quadrantenopia. Now, what is this and why does it occur? Now, a part of geniculocalcarine fibers, a part of optic radiation loops towards the temporal pole and then goes towards the visual cortex. Now, this loop is known as Mayer's loop, and due to involvement of this Mayer's loop, there is contralateral homonymous superior quadrant enopia, which is also known as pie in the sky. So it can be accompanied by Wernicke's aphasia if there is involvement of dominant hemisphere, or hemi-neglect phenomena if there is involvement of non-dominant hemisphere. So this is the spectrum of middle cerebral artery syndrome. So now we'll discuss about the posterior cerebral artery syndrome. So for that we need to know about the two parts of posterior cerebral artery, P1 segment and P2 segment. I want to tell you here that posterior cerebral artery, it arises from the bifurcation of basilar artery. So this is usually seen in 75% of cases. In 20% of cases, posterior cerebral artery arises from the internal carotid artery via the posterior communicating artery. And when it arises from the internal carotid artery, then it is called as fetal posterior cerebral artery. And in 5% of cases, both of the posterior cerebral arteries, they arise from the internal carotid artery. So we will discuss here about the majority of class in which the PCA arises from bifurcation of basilar artery. So it has two segments, P1 segment and P2 segment. P1 is from its origin to its junction with posterior communicating artery. And P2 is distal to its junction with posterior communicating artery. Now, each one of them has different implications. This P1 segment, if there is an occlusion of P1 segment, so it results in midbrain signs, thalamic signs and subthalamic signs. Because the P1 segment, it primarily supplies the midbrain, the cerebral peduncles, the subthalamus and medial thalamus. So if there is an occlusion of P1 segment, the following ensues. Midbrain signs is either Weber syndrome or Claude syndrome. Weber syndrome is ipsilateral third nerve palsy plus contralateral hemiplegia due to involvement of cerebral peduncles. Ipsilateral third nerve palsy plus contralateral hemiplegia. This is Weber. And what is Claude? Claude is due to involvement of dorsal red nucleus along with third nerve. So in this, apart from ipsilateral third nerve palsy, there is contralateral ataxia. So midbrain signs may include either Weber syndrome or Claude syndrome. Thalamic signs, if there is an involvement of medial thalamus, so it results in a syndrome known as Dejerine-Roussy syndrome. Now what is it? In Dejerine-Roussy syndrome, there is contralateral hemisensory loss followed by dramatic onset of severe burning, agonizing pain. So there is contralateral hemisensory loss followed by agonizing, burning pain over the affected areas. So usually there is dramatic description of this pain. Patient may explain to you like he has bathed in acid. So it is so much severe. It is poorly responsive to analgesics, tricyclic antidepressants and anti-epileptics like gabapentin or pregabalin. They may be beneficial. Now due to involvement of subthalamic nucleus, there is contralateral hemiballismus. So this is what happens if there is involvement of P1 segment. Now if there is an involvement of P2 segment, so because it mainly supplies the temporal cortex and the occipital cortex. So due to involvement of temporal, medial temporal and basal temporal cortex and hippocampus, there is acute disturbance in memory if there is involvement of dominant hemisphere. Acute disturbance in memory, which usually clears because there is bilateral representation of memory. But if there is bilateral involvement, so it will result in anterograde amnesia. Anterograde amnesia means lack of new learning and recent memory if there is bilateral involvement. Now, if this, apart from involvement of dominant hemisphere, if this infarct extends to involve the splenium of the corpus callosum, then patient will have alexia without agraphia. Let me tell you, alexia with agraphia is a feature of MCA occlusion, and alexia without agraphia is a feature of PCA occlusion. Now if there is this is all about the temporal cortex. If there is an involvement of occipital cortex, so the patient will classically have contralateral homonymous hemianopia without macular sparing. This is very important. I am stressing that the macula is also affected, in contrast to MCA occlusion in which there is classically macular sparing. Macula is represented in the calcarine cortex, in the visual cortex, which is usually supplied by the P2. So if there is an occlusion of P2, so macula is also affected. But in case of MCA occlusion, macula is classically spared. So occipital cortex, due to involvement of occipital cortex, there is contralateral homonymous hemianopia without macular sparing. Apart from this, patient can have peduncular hallucinosis. Now, peduncular hallucinosis means there is visual hallucinations of brightly colored objects and scenes. The patient has visual hallucinations of brightly colored objects and places. This is peduncular hallucinosis. Another thing is anomic aphasia or amnestic aphasia. Anomic aphasia is patient is unable to name objects. Supposingly I show him a pen, so he will tell me that it is red in color, it is used to write on board, but he will not be able to name it. This is anomic aphasia. But patient is identifying that it is something to write. Another thing is visual agnosia. In visual agnosia, patient is neither able to name nor he is able to describe its use. So there is loss of generic identification of objects, right? Like in anomic aphasia, you show him a person, so you show him his face. He is able to identify that this is a face, but he is not able to name. But in visual agnosia, patient lost the ability to identify whether it is a face, it is an object, it is a color. So there is loss of generic identification of objects, right? This is the difference between anomic aphasia and visual agnosia. So all of these can be occur in involvement of occipital cortex. Now there are some syndromes which occur if there is involvement of bilateral posterior cerebral artery that we will take up now. First one is Anton syndrome. Anton syndrome occurs when there is bilateral distal PCA occlusion. So in this there occurs cortical blindness. There occurs cortical blindness with intact pupillary light reflex. Now, patient is blind but is unaware of his blindness. Rather, he may even deny it. This is what occurs in Anton syndrome. Patient is unaware of blindness or deny it. Now, another syndrome is balance syndrome. Balance syndrome, it occurs when there is an involvement of bilateral visual association areas. So due to involvement of bilateral visual association areas which occurs as a result of watershed infarcts, in territory of distal MCA and PCA, as occurs after cardiac arrest. So what will happen? There is usually a triad of oculomotor apraxia, palinopsia, and simultagnosia. Now, what are these things? Oculomotor apraxia is deficit of orderly visual scanning of environment. The patient is not able to do orderly visuomotor scanning of the environment. This is oculomotor apraxia. Palinopsia is persistence of image. That means if you look at an object and then look at another object, there is persistence of the first object for several minutes. So there is persistence of image for several minutes despite gazing at another object. This is known as palinopsia. And simultagnosia is inability to form whole image. The patient is not able to simultaneously form whole image. It is classically described as patient misses forest for trees. That means supposingly I show him a table lamp and I ask him to name it. So he'll look at the base of the table lamp and say it is an ashtray. Okay, so a very good test to look for simultagnosia is, I'll just show you. Supposingly you tell the patient to encircle all the A in this image. So what he will do, he will encircle the small a's, but he failed to encircle the big a's. So the patient misses forest for trees because he is not able to form the whole image simultaneously. This is simultaneously. Apart from that, there can be optic ataxia. Optic ataxia means the manual reaching towards the visual target. Patient fails to manually reach towards the visual targets. So this is what we call as balance syndrome. This is all about the posterior cerebral artery syndrome. Hope you enjoyed this session. I know it was a difficult topic. I tried to make it easy. Thank you for your patience.